A very warm welcome on News9 Live, and today we are going to talk about the situation in Manipur, and I'm joined today by none other than Mr. Madhav, President India Foundation and member of the National Executive of Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. Thank you so much for making time. And point blank, let me ask you, why has situation in Manipur deteriorated so badly?
This gap between the communities in Manipur is not a new thing. It has been a very old phenomena. It needs to be managed very delicately. There always will be certain moments when those flashpoints come. Unfortunately, this time when that flashpoint happened, especially after the advice of the local high court to the government with regard to ST status, things could not be quickly managed, it appears, resulting in a very prolonged riot-like situation. I think it is definitely very unfortunate, but right now it appears that things are slowly but definitely returning to some kind of normalcy.
You scripted BJP's success in Manipur. Biren Singh was appointed as Chief Minister when you were in charge. Where has the Chief Minister gone wrong?
I don't want to blame the Chief Minister or any particular individual or anything like that for the situation right now in Manipur. Because I must tell you, when we formed the government, there was actually an active ongoing conflict between the Meiteis and Kukis. There was a decision by the previous Congress government which had led to massive agitation in the hills. There was police firing and a good number of deaths happened. 9 people who died, the hills people who died, the locals refused to bury them. The result was that their bodies were kept in the morgue there for almost 2 years, you can say. When our government was formed, the very first challenge we took upon ourselves was to resolve this conflict. That time Mr. Biren was the Chief Minister. With Mr. Biren's help or with his own initiative, we were able to resolve that big conflict between the two communities. Within less than 2 months' time, the standoff has been ended to the satisfaction of both sides, and the bodies were buried with the due rituals. Everybody started hailing Biren as the great unifier of the state, of the people of hills and the valley. I don't see any reason to think anything different about Chief Minister per se. But this time the conflict has acquired much bigger dimension, I would say. Much bigger conflict it became. So probably we needed to do much more, obviously. I mean, nobody can say that we have done everything correctly and all that. Probably we should have done much more. Not a time to blame this leader or that leader, but a time for everybody to come together.
But sir, more than 44 days requires for some sort of an assessment. Buck has to stop somewhere. I mean to say 350 guns in Kashmir Valley can destabilize the entire theatre. You have more than 4,000 armed missing in a state. Leave alone think tanks. Political parties can't get their cookies and Meitei MLAs to sit in one room.
Oh yes, I do agree with your assessment of the, gravity of the situation, no doubt about it. Although Kashmir was not about 350 guns, it was much more. Kashmir also was a very serious problem, but we should not compare Kashmir with the situation here. In Kashmir, the fight was between anti-nationals, foreign mercenaries, etc. Here, it's no anti-nationalism involved here. We must remember. Neither is it actually any religious communal clash. On record, I can tell you, although even in my own party or in my own organization, some people think that it is a communal clash. It is not, because among the Meiteis, at least 30-40% are Christians. It's happening. And among the Kukis also, of course, majority of them are Christians. So it is more a rivalry that existed historically for many centuries between the two communities. Issue is about the land, the control, the entire region. So issues are different. But yes, I do agree that a situation continuing like this for more than almost 2 months now, more than 50 days now, it calls for some kind of concern, greater concern. I'm sure the government is seized of the situation. Both government, when I say, of course, state, but also the central government, Home Minister himself went there and tried to bring people across the table.
But then how do you start a conversation? Because for a conversation, people need to cede ground. And neither the government wants to cede ground, nor the people who are opposed to Biren Singh wants to cede ground. You can have a mighty chief minister, but if you want to have a conversation with the Biren Singh himself, then the cookies won't speak. And I'm saying this very bluntly because it sounds very crude, but that is the fact. Cookies don't want to see him.
May not be fully true, because after all, Mr. Biren Singh's government has cookie ministers, cookie MLAs. When tempers go to that level where communities do not want to see eye to eye, more than showing haste in creating some kind of a dialogue and all that, first we have to work for restoring peace. Can we create incident-free Manipur? That should be the topmost priority today. Because unfortunately, every second, third day we hear about some incident happening. And some say, no, not second, third day every day. I mean, today, although mainstream media may or may not get the feed or information, social media is full of a lot of information.
Correct.
It provides a lot of information about ongoing incidents almost on a regular basis. So priority, in my opinion, is to ensure that we reach a level of incident-free life there, so that we should be able to remove curfew fully. Today night curfew is there and sporadic incidents are happening. So once incident-free life returns, which is, in other words, in simple terms, peace, that's not real peace, but at least that we restore, then probably after some time we can have a negotiated a dialogue begin. For dialogue also, my view would be that it has to be with the help of certain third party non-political entities. If that can be set in motion, that will that can be put in place, that will definitely help in restoring dialogue between them. But again I am repeating, I am sorry, but priority is create incident-free Manipur.
So if incident-free Manipur needs to be created, it requires a peace committee. A lot of people have suggested Truth and Reconciliation Commission, I think, which was once in a century sort of thing, which Mr. Mandela did. But the last peace committee came a cropper. Members called up media houses saying that I wasn't even informed, so I don't want to be part of it. That Gargantuan thing fell apart in 24 hours, sir, and there's been no peace committee. I mean to say, there is no committee. Who should people talk to?
What can happen is the leaders of both communities, when I say leaders, not political leaders, the civilian leadership in both communities has to take things into its hands and convince their respective groups, especially in both sides there are groups which are active, ensure that they do not indulge in any violent activities. Is that possible? I can tell you, yesterday and the day before, we had some discussion with the civilian leadership of Manipur, both Maithei leadership and Kuki leadership in this very office here. After listening to them at length, we get a feeling that there are people in both communities, highly respected people. If allowed, they can probably try and restore that kind of, some kind of semblance of civility and normalcy in their respective communities. Today, it is more important for the communities to take things into their own hands and ensure that those who are taking the path of violence are discouraged, they are prevented. If that effort can begin, I think it can happen. I don't see it as any great difficulty, because not a comparison, but we have seen in even states like Kashmir, where things are much worse and much more different from this. Villages used to take initiative to ensure that their village will not allow any anti-Indian incidents. Here it is not even that. It is just about a clash between two communities. So community leadership has a greater role, I feel.
But don't you think that someone should be responsible, sir? I think in post-colonial India, this mass ghettoization of communities is unprecedented. You have people moving from one corner to another and they don't want to work, and the state wants no pay, no work. I mean to say, there is so much of resentment in the state with that.
Ghettoization, wherever it happens, is bad. There's no doubt about it. Whether it is Manipur or anywhere else in the country, one community being pushed to one area or restricted to one area is bad anywhere, but it happens, unfortunately, it happens in many parts of the country. So, ghettoization, of course, is not good. But let me tell you, Manipur has a history. You know, in 1990s and early 2000s, there used to be grave tensions between the Nagas and Kukis. Both are dwellers of the hills, both live in hills. There were clashes in which almost 100 lives were lost. 200 lives were lost. I am talking about period in 1990s and early 2000s. Those days also, same was the situation. Those villages, Kuki villages in Naga areas were forced to vacate and move to Kuki areas. Naga villages in Kuki areas were forced to vacate and move to Naga areas. You know, when communities fail to live together in goodwill and harmony, sometimes such situations arise. Overall goodwill has to be restored in current situation in Manipur, but pending that, the immediate priority again I am saying is, first of all, create a normal routine life for people in the state. Then I am sure, because although they were fighting, they have been living together in that state. In fact, not for decades or centuries, it's millennia. They have been together.
People say when you were in charge of Northeast, you know, you would stay put in Churachandpur, you would stay put in small centers. Did you expect way then, you know, when you defeated a 3-time sitting Chief Minister, Ibobi Singh, that under the Chief Minister whom you picked, the government which came under your supervision, the administration would melt away like this in 48 hours?
I can say this much, that the kind of goodwill we could create between all the three communities when we formed the government in 2017. Based on that experience, I was handling the affairs of the state until end of 2020. In those 4 years, my experience was that absolutely fantastic people, excellent people. Leaders were so good, we worked together so very well. So, for me, this extent of conflict came as a bit of a surprise, no doubt. Because the kind of Kukis, the kind of Meitei, the kind of Naga leadership I saw, I never expected that things would go this far, where they would refuse to even see eye to eye. They would refuse to sit across the table. This perhaps is definitely an unexpected thing. For a person like me, my experience is only 5-6 years, you can say, in that 2014 to 2020, 6 years.
But you delivered Northeast.
We did work very effectively, because as you rightly
what about
said,
the political line you pushed, unifier of Plains and Hill?
I have always one principle, that you have to empower people. In hills, we have 6 hill district councils. They were created under a law, under an act of the state. Those councils, when we came to power in 2017, the very year we held elections to those district councils and gave power to the district people. Like Kukis had power in 4 districts, Nagas had power in 2.5 districts. So they are in power, they are able to manage their affairs. So that gives a sense of confidence and sense of belongingness. I would say that probably after 2022, for various reasons, maybe COVID or some other reason, those elections could not be held. We at an appropriate time, we have to hand the power back to the people. That is a very fundamental requirement, not just in Manipur, anywhere in the country. Power has to be, we are in a democracy, power has to be with the people concerned. Who should have power? They should have power. So I think some such measures at the political level will be required afterwards, not today. Today priority is different, but at some point we need to take them into confidence. They are not anti-nationals. Neither Meiteis are anti-nationals nor Kukis are anti-nationals. Such elements will be there everywhere. Some elements which try to exploit the situation. Some may talk about a nation, a Manipuri nation. Some may talk about that, but that's not the common view. Manipur produced so many patriots. You know, those who died right from INA to today in Indian Army. You will find large number of people coming from Manipur. All societies, Kukis, Nagas, Meiteis. We have Lieutenant General rank officials who are from Meitei community. We have soldiers from Kukis. In fact, INA, in Subhash Chandra Bose's army, those who sacrificed their lives in that battle in Manipur, Moirang and all, majority were cookies. Out of 200 people dead, 150, 160 are cookies.
But you know, Manipur also has its own contradiction. Both cookies and Maitis, they imagine their state differently. They imagine their state history in a very contested way. Second thing I have realized that apart from an imagined history or the contested history, Maitis dominate the political landscape. The cookies dominate the bureaucracy there. Maitis are in the valley, the cookies are in the hill. You know, there are so many fault lines. How do you expect them to be bridged unless and until, you know, they are constitutionally, legally resolved? For example, like there is a debate why every tribe should be a scheduled tribe. Or for example, the land resource problem. Why should Maitis be confined to land only? And then, let me put it this way, the larger narrative, all cookies are outsiders, poppy cultivator hai. And Maitis, just because they are in majority, ये तो majoritarian politics करते हैं. In this such vitiated environment, how do you create a middle ground?
The last 7 decades of the experience with the state has been that never was this the discourse there. The kind of discourse that you put forward now was never a discourse there. Manipur had cookies as chief ministers, even Muslims as chief ministers. Although the population was small, confined to one district called Jiribam, they became chief ministers. Of course, Meiteis became chief ministers. There was never any such question. Because although they belong to three different tribal or ethnic identities, they lived like one people. It has always been like one state. Today, because tensions reached a very high level, we are now actually discussing all these things. But never in that history was not like that. I mean, I'm telling you my own experience. Those 5-6 years that we handled the state, it never occurred to us that we are dealing with three watertight compartments. They worked, all of them worked together. There used to be, of course now because of conflict, that ghettoization you talked about, migration happened. But there used to be a good number of Meiteis in Churachandpur, in the hills. And I tell you, many of them used to be Christian Meiteis. So that state over the decades has developed a very syncretic existence, which has got affected today. I get your point also again. From there, today, you reached a point of nadir.
As a journalist, I find it very disturbing that every lawmaker I have interviewed, how sophisticated the argument might be, but they do not represent Manipuri identity. They spoke on ethnic lines. They did not act like Manipuris. You know, it's like saying there is unity in diversity. I'll put it around. There is diversity in unity.
You see, we are right now in a very difficult, sensitive situation. In this situation, sometimes for reasons like political correctness, etc., people may take a particular stand in the name of their own community, their own tribe, etc. But ideally, the history of this state has been that they always lived like one unit, one entity. And therein lies the future of Manipur also. That also everybody realizes. Although I know today there is a strong demand from one side that, no question of any tampering with the integrity of the state. I know when we talk to different groups in the valley, first point we used to make very clear used to be no tampering with state's integrity. That won't be changed. Short of that, okay, we can discuss anything. That used to be our principle. I think that remains the principle. State is one unit. We have lived like one state. We have to live like one state. But today different demands are there. They need to be tackled very carefully.
Before I close in, RSS has pressed itself into action during social crisis, whether it was 62 war, whether it has been calamities. How is RSS pressing itself into a national calamity of Manipur in terms of national unity, integration, values, getting people together?
Wherever such crises happen, RSS role will be only to offer succor to the people and help the affected, but also try and restore peace, maintain unity. I am sure to that extent our people, although in Manipur RSS activity is relatively small, but with whatever strength they have, they are probably working in the direction of ensuring that violence ends, normalcy returns, and people, those who are affected will get some succor, and larger unity of the community is maintained. That will be the RSS mission always.
RSS works at a social cultural level. How much RSS is worried about the fact that in Manipur you have some sort of, if I am not use the word militarization, but some sort of muscularization of social components, like you have armed militant Kuki groups, you have Arambai Tengol and Meiti Lupun, you had Meiti women coming out stopping the convoys of army, you have Kuki militias moving. How concerned are you? How concerned is the organization? Because the motto of the RSS is to work with the society.
Oh yes, of course. Militancy in whatever form, espoused by whichever community, is bad. We do not support it. So to that extent, I don't name which community has which militant group, but it is known even in the past. I mean, for many decades, there existed certain groups on all sides, and mostly when there is a strong government and law and order prevails, they used to operate outside of the state, never within the state. Leadership used to be in Myanmar and elsewhere. They used to try and create some mischief, but largely they were succeeded. Popular support to militancy was never so great in that state. Popular support to militancy. But right now, it is not just about militancy. It's a kind of a sentiment that has brewed in the state on both sides. I mean, in yesterday's and day before's discussion, we realized that it has become a strong sentiment now. So that needs to be tackled. It's a sentiment at the popular level. So that needs to be carefully tackled with a lot of sensitivity. You can't trample upon anybody's sentiment because these are not small militant groups doing this or that. It's actually a popular sentiment now. Because of certain events that have happened in the last 2 months, we need to tread very cautiously, very carefully. But the bottom line is integrity of the state and unity of all three communities, all the people, not even three. In fact, Manipur has, we generally talk about only 3 communities, but it has 5, 6, 7 communities. I mean, like any other state.
Correct.
They all have to live together. That should be the ultimate objective.
And the armed expression, the sort of paramilitarization of the 2 communities, aren't you concerned?
What we are talking of paramilitarization is because of stealing of weapons from government
Kuki
armor,
militia,
police armor. Kuki militia, I can say in 2008, suspension of operations happened. The weapons were confiscated by Assam Rifles. They were supposed to be lying with Assam Rifles. So there needs to be an audit done as to whether they are with Assam Rifles or they again reached the hands of the militant elements in
sudden coming up of Arambai Tengol, these were not there.
So these groups, as in a democracy, as normal social groups, if they are espousing a cause, that cause needs to be tackled separately. But the challenge of weapons has to be tackled differently, and that's why the government has tried to search and take those weapons back. Door-to-door searches are happening. I'm hopeful that those stolen weapons will come back, and also in the hills, if the weapons are back in the hands of the youth, they have to be confiscated again.
And lastly, yes, I do agree with you that the violence is on ethnic lines, but Manipur has also witnessed religious violence. This state has witnessed burning of temples, less reported, but also burning of churches, more reported, but equally burnt.
Yes,
equally.
Yes, because the simple point here is, when you are attacking a Hindu Meitei, you think that attacking a Hindu temple means I am attacking a Hindu Meitei. When you attack a church, you are thinking that attacking a church means you are attacking either a Kuki or a Christian Meitei. In Churachandpur, I tell you, churches were burned down. Those churches which Meiteis go. Because there it is seen as the symbol of Meiteis. Temples are seen as symbols of Meiteis. Churches are seen as symbols of Kukis. So, unfortunately,
would you get a chance to go to Churachandpur? Would you go there, stay there the way you used to do?
I mean, it's part of our country. You and me, everybody should be able to go anywhere in the country freely. That is what is the idea of India, the so-called idea of India. So why Churachandpur? Anywhere in the state, any corner of the state, we should be able to go. Although attacks happened on religious lines, on religious places, temples also, and churches also.
Yes, temples were burned.
I underscore the point that probably should not be seen as a religious clash, a Christian-Hindu clash, for the important reason that I mentioned, that there are Christians among the Meiteis also. It happened. When you see that as a symbol, you try to attack that, which is bad again. But if religious organizations now start playing, like, church organizations and other organizations jump into it and start propagating all over the world. I know I started receiving mails from America that, churches are being attacked, what are you doing, some, important human rights leaders. I mean, I respect them, I have nothing against them. But then I send them videos of, temples being burnt also. It's not about just any targeted attack on any particular religious community. It is a clash. In a clash, certain symbols are attacked. Symbols on both sides were attacked.
And last question, any one piece of advice to your former colleague, Mr. Biren Singh, who became Chief Minister when you were in charge of Northeast?
No, I am not in any such political authority to give any advice to him. But my only concern is that everybody should work towards, first of all, creating an incident-free Manipur.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. Okay, so that was Ram Madhav, point blank, blunt, not ducking any question, in our special edition on Manipur on News9 live stream. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.